Hello Earthlings, and welcome to the Shoe Sanctuary. My name's EDDBUD, and today I've got an initial review of the Tree Dasher, the first performance running shoe from Allbirds. Before we get to the review, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell below to get notifications of when new videos are launched, and smash that like button, I'd be most appreciative. So firstly, just got to state that this shoe has been sent to me by Allbirds, but I'm not being paid to make this video, and my views are my own honest opinions, and nobody's going to be reviewing this video before it goes out to you guys on YouTube. You know, EDDBUD always gives his honest views on the shoes. That rhymes, I like it. So one thing really does set this shoe apart from many others that I've reviewed over the recent weeks. This brand and the model are very focused on sustainability. They use very specific materials within the manufacture of their shoes. They make lots of different casual shoes as well, with a real focus on a specific type of wool actually. The carbon footprint of these shoes is somewhat lower than a standard running shoe, made of synthetic materials perhaps. Everything's kind of geared up to be sustainable, so do keep that in mind as we go through the review. So there's 4 different colorways of the Tree Dasher available. This Thunder, which appears to be a dark blue, Geyser, which is a light blue, Flame, a light red colour, and this one, the Cyclone, which is sort of like a peppermint green. So I took these out for an initial 7-mile effort this morning. Got out there nice and early, it was really quiet everywhere. Hit an average of about 7 minutes 51 per mile, and then about 1.5 miles of very easy recovery. After that are about 8 minutes 50 per mile. So 8.5 miles today, and 50 miles for the whole week. So going to kick off with the upper first on this one. So this upper's made from eucalyptus trees. It's not very often you get to say that about a running shoe. It's very similar to the mesh or the Flyknit that you might find perhaps on the Infinity Run or on the Pegasus line, something like that. Although it does have a much softer feel to it than those shoes. It does feel almost like a wool, kind of like a cotton material. Toe box is really roomy. There's lots of room in there in terms of width. I'd say the shoe is true to size though. I wouldn't suggest going up half a size or anything like that. Certainly true to size. The knit's actually quite stretchy. It doesn't look like it when you first get the shoe in hand, but as soon as you put your foot into the shoe, you feel that it's quite a bit of stretch to it. Certainly down through the kind of tongue, or what would be the tongue area. As you can see, it's kind of one piece. Slightly stretchy here in the opening around your ankle. And temps about 14C today. With a thicker sock, I found them perfectly breathable. There's a slightly stretchy nature around the ankle area here, but it certainly grips the foot and the ankle in a very similar fashion to the Infinity Run. Lacing is by means of these 8 rings here, and there's a wool heel lining around the back of the shoe, and then there's some strips as well inside just underneath where the rings are. Apparently the wool is ZQ Merino sourced. I don't know if that's a type of wool, but it's very soft. I found the comfort to be excellent all round in terms of the upper with this shoe. Really is one of the most comfortable shoes I can remember putting my foot into. I didn't find that these rings dug into my foot at all. I was a little worried about that actually initially. I had some thinner socks that I was going to wear, but I went for my slightly thicker socks, but my worries were unfounded. Incredibly comfortable right up to the last mile. The laces don't have too much give to them, and I found it really easy to achieve a good lockdown in the Tree Dasher today. I think even these nylon rings are some type of bio nylon, so they're sustainable. Everything about the shoe is sustainable. Even the box is apparently 90% recycled materials. The box is really cool actually. I'll throw some shots up of that on the screen so you can check it out. It really does make you feel like you've got some sort of very special item when you open it up, and not just like a standard shoe box where you just kind of, great, new run shoes. This gave me a feeling of intrigue as I opened them. Gotta say I had no issues whatsoever with the upper over my initial run today. Comfortable, supportive and breathable. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 3 on my initial run for the upper. On to midsole now. So the Tree Dasher has a 7mm drop from heel to toe, 22.5mm in the heel and 15.5mm in the forefoot. Certainly a real revelation on foot, this one. I was crying out for something comfortable today. I've run a lot of miles this week, more than I normally would, and the Tree Dasher really delivered in terms of a nice cushioned feel underfoot. As soon as I put my foot into the shoe, I could feel it was going to be an enjoyable experience. Certainly greeted with generous space to lay my foot down, and a really nice cushioned underfoot feel. I was trying to figure out exactly what it felt like. It's somewhere between React and perhaps the fresh foam that you've got on the Beacon. Yeah, something like that. Something between React and fresh foam. I think that's partly due to the Sweet Foam Midsole. Oh, cool name for a midsole. It's actually made of sugarcane. I believe the midsole material is actually carbon negative. So an EVA based midsole that's actually carbon negative. Listen up, Nike. I have read that the midsole does have 2 different densities of foam, and looking at the midsole itself, you can see there are 2 different areas very specifically. It's another one of these shoes that's got a midsole and then exposed midsole section on the outsole. It does seem the top layer is slightly more cushioned, and then the section just underneath is a little firmer. As I say, there's many a comparison to the Infinity Run from Nike with this shoe. The midsole shape, the contours, I think you'll agree they're quite similar. Decent responsiveness from the midsole here. It's firm enough for you to inject a little pace if you want to. Today I was certainly looking to run some slower miles. I was going to aim for about 8 minutes per mile, but the shoe felt great, so I thought I'd push it a little bit more and see what I could get out of it. I think on some rested legs, which are certainly not my legs today, I could have pushed the pace a little more, so it'll be interesting to see as the week progresses if I can get some faster paces out of the shoe. Today though, it did a great job as an easier day shoe. You could probably use this on some longer runs. Certainly it's got the comfort required for that, so I don't see why it couldn't be a shoe you can select for those types of runs. Relatively versatile. A very cool thing about this shoe is that the insole is made using castor bean oil. I tell you what, this insole is really cushioned as well. It's like no other insole that I've tried in any other shoe. I lie actually, there's one shoe that has a similar insole, and that's my Jordan 5 OGs that I got recently. The stock insoles are quite similar to this. There is one drawback though, the shoe is a little heavy. I don't know whether it's the midsole foam itself or partly due to the upper, but at 340 grams, it's certainly up there with your Infinity Runs and your Ultra Boost 20s. So I don't think it's something I'd opt for doing some type of interval run or racing perhaps, but as a really solid daily shoe, oh yes. So I'm going to drop off a few points for that for the midsole. I'm going to give this 2.4 out of 3 for the midsole on the Tree Dasher. On to outsole now. So we've got dual rubber sections on the outsole of the Tree Dasher, one in the forefoot and then one on the outer section of the heel. Some exposed midsole foam here, although it does feel a lot firmer than the stuff that's higher up in the midsole. I found this really great on tarmac roads. Decent grip there. It's good on some paths. It handled some gravel quite well, but no good on grass, as per usual with a lot of these shoes. Very slippery, in fact. I had to head across a grass section to avoid some people early morning who had their headphones in and couldn't hear me, and I was slipping and sliding on the grass, unfortunately. So no good if you're going to perhaps use these for running on fields or on some grass-based park runs. You need something with some protrusions for that. I love that word. It'd be interesting to see how the rubber does hold up over time. There's already some aesthetic coloration of the rubber there. It's darkened quite quickly really over the 8.5 miles I did this morning. Relatively simple pattern there. The rubber is quite thin, so it could be that durability is not going to be quite as good as you would hope for with the outsole of the Tree Dasher. I think I've upset Mrs. EDDBUD. She's moving things around down there. There's a lot of noise, sort of like these grinding sounds. This lockdown business ain't easy. Certainly they've looked to minimise the outsole rubber here, perhaps to bring the weight down a little bit. But I'd say it's simple, it's reasonably effective on most surfaces. I'm going to give this a 2.4 out of 3 for the outsole. It turns out Mrs. EDDBUD was sawing a piece of wood. I've told her to refrain from such activities until the review is finished. How can an artist work in these conditions? On to the final category of value. So this shoe retails at £120, so that's about 20 quid cheaper than the Infinity Run from Nike, £40 cheaper than the Ultra Boost 20 from Adidas, and £15 more expensive than Nike's Pegasus 37 model. That is if you could actually buy it in the UK at the moment, but you can't. Hey, you know, Nike's staple running shoe, and can't get it here yet. I'm sure it will appear soon. I think the major downfall for me here is weight. 340 grams is a weighty shoe, certainly for a daily shoe. In my UK size 11, that's a whopping 125 grams heavier than my Takumi Sen 6, which is an 11.5. Obviously very different shoes for different use cases, but it's certainly comparable in weight to the Adidas Ultra Boost 20 and the Infinity Run. Similar use cases, I guess, as well for those shoes. I certainly would think about reaching for this shoe if I was going to run some easy recovery miles. I'd argue and say the fit is possibly better than the Infinity Run. just feels a lot more locked down on your foot. Not that I've ever really had any bad miles in that shoe. It's always been a fun shoe to run in, the Infinity Run, but this is another option. I found the Tree Dasher infinitely more comfortable to run in than the Ultra Boost 20. That shoe just really didn't work for me. Feels like the balance here is a lot better. Feels like the balance between the upper and the midsole, the drop, everything about it just seems a lot more refined. It just seems a lot better. I'd say one big factor here that affects value is the awesome fact that you can actually machine wash these shoes by simply removing the insole and also the laces. You can pop them in on a cold water gentle cycle and then let them dry naturally, and apparently it doesn't affect the materials at all. So when I get some more miles into this one and it's starting to look a little bit tarnished, I will be trying that out. So if you're after a great easy day shoe for longer runs perhaps, that's comfortable and vastly more eco-friendly than many of the other running shoes out there right now, then I can heartily recommend the Tree Dasher from Allbirds. Apart from the slightly weighty nature and my anxieties about the thickness of the rubber and also slippery nature on some wet surfaces, I've really enjoyed this shoe so far. More miles very soon. If you've got any questions about this interesting new shoe from Allbirds, please place them in the comments below and I'll try and get back to you as quickly as I can. You know I'm a rock and roller. I play in a rock and roll band. Well, when the lockdown's not on at least, but I love old rock and roll. Bo Diddley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly and Little Richard. One of my favourite performances ever in terms of live rock and roll is a Little Richard performance where he was with a UK band, Sounds Incorporated. It is one of the greatest live performances of rock and roll that there's ever been. Little Richard's this leader kind of urging people on to have fun. He stood on top of his piano at one point. He does an incredible version of Jerry Lee's Whole Lot of Shaking Going On. Do check that YouTube video out. It is something special. So R.I.P. Little Richard, one of the true rock and roll greats. He'll never be forgotten. Little Richard. It's time for me to hit the road. Hope you've enjoyed the video today and thank you for watching through to the very end. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications of when my new videos are launched. Hit that like button and share this video with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you